So, has anyone got any questions? Or anything they want to say about that?
For me, that was there was just a calmness to that. When you were talking about the awareness, so looking at your feelings or looking at a situation, there's just nothingness, I suppose. Really, I could see it all, but no emotion attached to it. For me, it's very strong, very powerful. I felt my body throughout as well, but didn't have the urge to move at all. And if I think normally I'd be fidgeting, to be honest, after 20 minutes or 15 minutes, but just having awareness of your body and not actually feeling like you are.
So you're it's not exactly a nothing, though, is it? Because one of the technical terms used in Buddhist literature is emptiness, which is a bit confusing, really, when you try and think about it. But so your awareness is empty of contents because it's aware of the contents arising. But awareness is not nothing. Awareness is awareness. It's actually our sense of I. So this is one of the difficulties with learning about this stuff, is that you talk about things in a third person perspective, in it language. So awareness is an it. There's normally, when you talk about something in the third person, there's you as the subject talking about an object. So I am talking about awareness. There's me, and awareness is something out there that I'm talking about. And that is a valid perspective, and it's a true way of thinking about it, but it's also true to call awareness has the subjective experience too, which is your experience of being aware. And what we call awareness is also actually what we refer to as I. So in all those different memories we were looking at, the part of you that never changed was the feeling of I am here having this experience as a child. I am here making my toast in the morning. I'm sitting here. Even though everything's changed, your sense of I has always been the same. So part of this process is turning a third person thing into a first person experience. So for like the first 10 years or so of my meditation practice, this state of mind was something I was learning about. It was out there and I was trying to achieve it. And then I happened across some of these pointing out instructions, and I suddenly realised what all of this meditation literature and stuff had been talking about was actually the nature of my own mind, my experience of my awareness was exactly what they were talking about. And for the first time, it wasn't an it that I was trying to get. I was it, that. And there's a Hindu saying, Tat Vamasi, which means you are that. You are this, what we're talking about in all these texts about meditation and yoga. That's you. And with the fidgeting thing, so the part of you that wants to fidget is your body might want to fidget. You might emotionally feel uncomfortable with like, oh, why am I doing this and that, and then also your sub might be thinking, oh, maybe it's time to fidget, all that kind of thing. So all of those things are going on, but your awareness is just effortlessly aware of what's happening. There's no motive inside you as awareness to fidget or anything. There's no motivation. in awareness at all, other than the nature of your awareness is just awake. It's just awake and transparent. So this is what I mean with the term, the introduction to the nature of mind. This is the nature of this layer of your mind, and it's always calm, always uncontracted, and it's effortlessly like that. So if I go like this, everybody here effortlessly heard that clap. You didn't have to do anything to hear that. That's the nature of your mind at this level. It's just totally open, doesn't reject any experience that comes up, doesn't seek any type of experience. It's just totally awake, letting all of this stuff, happen inside it. And the reason why Dzogchen and teachings like that start with this is that if you don't realise this right at the beginning, then you'll spend, like me, 10 years looking for the part of you that's doing the looking, if that makes sense, which is really frustrating. And yeah.
So when you started explaining about the different compartments and the thoughts and the emotions and the physical, and then there's a separate sort of awareness thing, my initial instinct was that was the sort of judging part, that's sort of bringing all these things together and acknowledging them and then making decisions on the basis of all of those things. But from what you say, I feel like that's also a separate. That's a
thought. So those are thoughts.
Oh, okay.
And you're still aware of your thoughts.
Yeah.
So who's aware? Who or what is aware of all of that? And any time a question arises about any of this stuff, there's just a part of you that's just aware of that question arising. There's no questions as this layer of your mind. It's sometimes referred to as the ground of being. It's a Christian term for it, or the groundless ground, and sort of like nonsensical terms, because it is not. This is a non-verbal part of your mind. So your brain, if you've looked at brain research, has different parts of your brain are verbal, some parts are non-verbal, and if you interrupt the verbal part, you get put into states of mind that are non-verbal. Yeah, and they're different layers of you of who you are. Yeah. So when I say about doing this specific thing, I enjoy having a personality. I think it's wonderful, and I love everybody's personalities and all of that stuff. Being a person is really cool. But there is a part of your mind and identity which it's not personal, and it's identical in all of us, because it doesn't actually have any contents. It's just the part of our mind which is awake, always relaxed. It does nothing else than be open and effortless. Does that help? And if another question arises, that's just more thoughts arising in your awareness. And so then the more you do this practice, you start to realise that experiences arise simultaneously with your awareness. So your awareness is separate. So if you think about the yin-yang sign, the yin-yang sign is really dark and really white. Yeah, it's one symbol that's made of a really black bit and a really white bit. And I know they've got the two bits inside each other, but just think about the whole thing, and the really dark and the really white. What we're doing is that's not a grey circle. Okay, that would be one idea of unity, a grey circle. But this isn't. This is really white, really black, and moving. And so we're separating out these polarities inside yourself, so you can actually see them and notice them. And then you realise that they simultaneously happen. So it's still one experience. So even though I was saying there's the sensation of you as awareness witnessing all of these things happening, I don't mean ultimately to say that where we're heading is just disappearing into nothingness and just letting the world disappear. That is actually one approach that people go with meditation. And you might come across it, and it just complete rejection of life, basically. A rejection of being a person, one famous meditation teacher was on a panel fairly recently, and someone said, "But what about climate change and that kind of thing?" And he said, "Well, it's all an illusion, so it doesn't matter." And it's all a matter of what perspective you take. So from this perspective we've been doing, so specific type of perspective taking we've just been doing, it is an illusion. But this is not the whole story. So your awareness simultaneously happens with events that arise inside it, like being a person, having thoughts and feelings and that sort of thing. So it is one experience. So when I say about the path, in Zen they have this saying, to start off with, a mountain is a mountain, then it's no longer a mountain, and then it's a mountain again. There's these 3 stages of the path. It sounds totally crazy, but and this is like in the beginning, you're sort of identified with everything. Everything's just one kind of mush. And then went through doing your meditation practice, you start to disidentify with your body, your feelings and your thoughts, and realise that actually there's a part of yourself which isn't any of those things. It doesn't feel like any of those things. Whether it is or not, I don't know. But what we're really interested in is the actual subjective experience of this and what it can do for your life. Yeah. So you separate out like this, and in Hinduism they call it neti, which is not this, not that. So everything that arises is like, oh, I notice this is arising, so it's not me. And you just keep pushing back. And there's this Zen term called absolute subjectivity, which is a term I really like. It's just like you just push back in subjectivity so far that everything is an object and you're seeing it. And it just feels like, this is why this is a practice you do your whole life, because you just keep going back and back. Yeah, becoming freer and freer and freer of everything. But then once you've done that a lot, you realise that everything still arises anyway. So you still get up in the morning, and the room happens, and your thoughts happen, and you still you get breakfast for your dog and all that stuff.
Ralph, it links to me, from my understanding of Dan Siegel's Wheel of Awareness.
Yeah.
Have you looked at that at all?
Not specifically.
Okay, well, there's a hub. There's a hub of awareness, and then you have spokes coming out.
Yeah.
So you're kind of aware of all your perceptions, and you are the hub.
Yeah.
And you're aware. That link for me is his kind of teachings of that, which I've been trying to understand a little bit, but.
Well, that's one of the things I'd written down here, was that all the senses lead back to HQ.
Yeah.
But the HQ is empty.
Yeah.
It's not nothing.
It's
It's awareness.
Yeah.
But awareness is a third person term. It's an it. So when we say awareness, we tend to think of something out there.
Yeah.
But awareness is actually our sense of I. Not in a personal sense, but there's a Hindu meditation teacher called Ramana Maharshi, and he called it the I hyphen I, the I. So it's the I that's aware of your smaller I. So that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like a hub.
The hub. This
Yeah.
we with so many words for it. You know, the hub, awareness, I amness, empty consciousness, pure consciousness, and one traditional metaphor for it is this all is like your sense of I amness or your awareness, and wherever you put this orb, it takes on the colours of what it's put on. So it can be any colour, and anything can arise inside it, any image. Yeah, but this is always empty. Once that thing's gone, there's no trace left in it. And the other thing to say about awareness is that it's always now. So there's no past or future. Your awareness is purely focused on this moment now. So I find this is a really helpful metaphor for it. The only downside of this metaphor is this sphere is not actually awake. That's the difference between this and awareness. Awareness is awake and aware, but this isn't. Another one is they use as a mirror. So reflections arise inside a mirror, and then when they're gone, there's nothing left in there. So in your awareness, you don't get any residual emotions or sensations or anything like that inside. Nothing gets left inside your awareness. It's always empty to receive the next things that come in. So the reason why I put this over the top is so I don't burn the house down. I don't know if anyone's had these kind of things in your house. If it's like a magnifying glass. The sunlight shines through it. Yeah. So. So what are the benefits of having this realization that we've just been playing with here? I mean, why do any of this? Who's got any thoughts on that? What's the point?
That's going to be my next question.
Yeah. So why? So yeah. So you're just asking the question. Why? You know, what's the you? Why is this a good thing?
So that you don't.
Yeah.
You're aware. So that you become aware of your awareness.
That you are aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything that's going on. You don't have to be taken with it.
Yeah.
Because it's happening.
I think
in your
it's
centre.
sorry.
Mhm.
I think it's about why I'm doing it is to help me control my reactions and to be not affected by things so much. So this whole awareness thing, you can be aware that things are going on around you, but you don't have to be affected.
Yeah. Well, your awareness doesn't try and control anything because it can't. That's not what it like. If you try not to hear the sound. Okay, you just can't do it. Try not see me. Yeah. The part of you that wants to control anything is your personality. And there's nothing wrong with wanting your personality wanting to control things. Your personality, if you think about the brain science, is a small fairy little mammal, you know, that just wants safety, wants to know what's going on, all of that, wants connection with other fairy mammals. Yeah. But your awareness doesn't want to change anything at all. And this is really important when you're doing this kind of meditation, is if you notice any urge inside you to change what's happening, that's not your awareness, your awake, transparent consciousness. You're not identifying with that part of yourself in that moment. You're identifying with your personality, which wants to, like, oh, I'm starting to think about my children dying or something like that. You know, so when all sorts of crazy stuff comes up when you're meditating, and you can feel part of you trying to push away certain experiences, or you think, oh God, that was a good five minutes. Like I felt really calm, and then you start trying to get it back and all that. Those parts of yourself that are trying to do all of that, that's not your awareness. That's your personality. That's arising inside your awareness. But what the part of what you were saying, which is spot on, is that the more you do this, you don't get lost. And it's to do what you were saying, Nick, that the experience of getting totally carried away in the moment, thinking of children. My kids drive me totally crazy a lot of the time, and so sometimes I just totally black out and I'm just caught up in the moment, doing, and then suddenly you kind of like realise, well, I wasn't even, it's a bit like being in a dream or something. You're just acting out. You're not even aware of what you're doing. You're not even actually, almost, you've gone unconscious. And then suddenly it's like you snap out of it and you're like, wow, what? Also, if sometimes if you're driving, you can suddenly think, where have I been the last 15 miles? Or so, have you had that experience where you just, yeah? Part of the reason to do this is that if your default state of mind is to get lost in your feelings and thoughts all the time. So if you see someone, I saw someone walking the other day down the road, and I could just tell they were totally lost in thought. When you can see when they're not even there, they're just thinking about something. They're walking to go somewhere, and they're just not actually there. So one of the benefits of doing this is you actually get to experience your life, because otherwise your life will just rush past, and then you'll be dead. It's like life is just like a dream. But if you're developing this recognition of this part of yourself, which is aware and awake and always open and alert, not accepting or rejecting anything, then you actually get to really like drink in life. Life's beautiful.
Tricky part is not reacting, isn't it? Because our brain is trained to always respond to things emotionally.
Certain parts of your brain are, but other parts not.
Other parts not.
And that's maybe we're trying to access a part of our brain which it doesn't do that.
Is that what you're saying? It's kind of two separate things. It's kind of a waste of life though not to react. So this is really important. I'm glad you raised that. So the more you do this practice, when you start off doing something like when you first learn to ride a bike, it's probably such a long time ago, unless anyone learned to ride a bike in the last couple of years. But think of learning something new. Pam, you do driving teaching. Someone gets in a car. The first time they're driving, it's like, oh my God, they're going to mirrors, and it's just so much to do, and you're really clunky, and it feels all kind of forced and unnatural. Yeah. Like learning an instrument, learning anything, but the more you do it, you develop the kind of finesse or the art of it starts to come to life. So the more you learn to recognise your empty consciousness and awareness, the more you are able to really get lost. Not lost, like go right deep into life without losing yourself. So when I bring up the thing about the kids driving me crazy, there's part of me that's going crazy in the moment, but part of me that is not going crazy, and they're simultaneously arising.
So, a passive awareness.
Yeah, a choiceless awareness is another good term for it. But it's not passive awareness, because it's not, passive is a bit like kind of dull and dead. This is the part of you that's like really alive and awake in this moment. Or the thing with the kids is probably not a very good example. But what would be a good example with the children is I'm really attached to my children. They're like utmost importance in my life, and I'm really attached. And if anything bad would happen to them, I would be emotionally destroyed. And I'm totally think that's entirely natural, and I love that. You know, that's like the feeling of attachment. It's an amazing thing. But I can also be, through having done this for years and years, really detached from them at the same time. And they're two simultaneously. They're not. When you talk about it in language like this, it seems like you're talking nonsense, because they're two completely different things. But the actual experience in the moment is that they happen at the same time. And in fact, the more you develop this part of your recognition, you can't develop this part of yourself. It's just the nature of your mind as it is. But what you can develop is the recognition of it moment to moment. So you're more often in this state of mind. The more you can do that, the more attached you can get to your partner or your children or life. You know, and you get less afraid of things happening in your life, and the big feelings that you get. My mum's got Alzheimer's, and fairly recently I got really sad about it, and rather than from having a history with doing this kind of meditation practice, rather than say, "Oh, I'm not going to go there. You know, I can't do it. I can't have these feelings." Yeah, I know that I'm big enough to let these feelings really do what they want to do, and that's love. I love it. You know, it's, anyone else got any things that, like, why would you want to do this anyway?
Is there ever a risk if you go? I know we were talking earlier about mountain, no mountain. If you ever stayed in no mountain, so you're so disassociated with things that you could almost become no empathy.
Yeah. Or a solipsist. So a solipsist is someone that believes that only they exist, and other people are just like things. They're the only. Yeah. So these are the wrong turns along the path. So one would be solipsism, another one would be total indifference to anything in your life. This in Zen they call this the stink of Zen, where people get stuck in this perspective because they do so much meditation. They start to believe that this is the only part that's important in life, and everything else. So this is why this guy can say, climate, the climate problems. Just who cares? And that is stopping at stage 2 on the path. So, the mountain's not a mountain, but then if you keep going, the mountain's a mountain again. And so there's a term. I'm doing a lot of talking. I'm sorry. We're going to do a lot more meditation, and I'm going to put the heating on as well. In Buddhism, there's this term dukkha, which means suffering, but dukkha means stuck. So if a cartwheel or something is stuck, then that makes suffering happen. And that when things are moving and free flowing, then you experience the opposite of suffering. This is relevant to do with that, is that you're not getting stuck in a bit, going along the path a certain way and then just getting stuck there. You just got to keep going. And also this thing with the stuckness is that we're developing today different perspectives, different parts of our identity, so that we're more freely able to move around in them, rather than being stuck in an identity as just a personality, or just awareness, or just a bodily sensation. I mean, some medical conditions where someone's they may have no thoughts or feelings or anything, but they're just locked in bodily sensations. So
That's a possibility. Or some people get stuck in their mind, like that person I was talking about walking down the street. They were not existing in their body at that moment, or they were just in a purely mental world of thoughts. So I just made some notes here about some of these things we've been talking about, and resilience for the future, for the rest of life, with all sorts of crazy things that are coming down the pipeline, in our future. This creates the spaciousness inside you to not be afraid of all of those things happening. Because there's a part of you that is terrified of it, a small furry mammal part, your personality. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what that part of you does. But there's another part of you which is your empty awareness, your I-ness, your awakeness, which is not afraid of anything. If someone was to come and torture you right now, your awareness wouldn't shut it. It wouldn't be able to shut it out, because it doesn't do that kind of thing. But the fairy mammal part of you would be in absolute agony, Okay. So the more you meditate and you see all of these things happening, they come and they go, and you start to realise what in Buddhism they call impermanence. The more precious life becomes, because you realise it's always, coming and going, and you can get really, every moment of life becomes more beautiful. I'm using my notes a bit more than normal, so I'm going to turn them over. Right. What we'll do is, anyone got any more questions? Very happy to answer.
Right off.
Yeah.
Just on why you're doing it. Would it be, it's right in saying that awareness of your thoughts is one reason to do it, being aware of the thoughts that you are having?
Yeah.
So quite right.
Yeah. So if you're aware of your thoughts, the more you practice this, the more you're aware of your thoughts arising, and you realise there's an actual separation between who you are and your thoughts. You're not actually your thoughts. If you were your thoughts, it's quite hard to describe. If you were a thought, the thought comes and goes. And if you were your thoughts, you'd be coming and going all the time. But you're not. There's a sensation of always being there. Yeah. And that part of yourself is always uncontracted and always relaxed and just,
I guess that's one of the reasons I've found it's been good to look into more. It's just being in part aware of the thoughts that I am having.
Well.
Yeah.
No, go.
It
Keep
probably
going.
is blurry lines too as to what part of me is processing those thoughts.
Yeah, who's aware of thoughts?
Yeah.
That's the question. And I'm not, you can't describe it in words. It's just an experience you have. I've tried my best to do pointing out this part of yourself, but it's for you to actually. It's an experience. Yeah, your own subjective experience of it, and being free of your thoughts. The day I realised I wasn't actually my thoughts was a great day for me, because when it's agony to believe that it's so limiting to think that you're only what you think. Once you start to disidentify from your thoughts, you realise you can be or do a lot more than you thought you could.
Do you think that's quite a good way of dealing with a physical pain issue? If you're sort of dealing with a condition, if you disattach yourself, is that a way of controlling that pain?
There's a big thing with mindfulness treatment of chronic pain. It's a really popular thing now.
Yeah.
And so this is directly in relation to that you are not
your pain.
You're not the
It's not to say that there's no part of you that is identified with the pain, but there's a part of you which is not actually your pain. There's a part of you which doesn't shrink away from pain. Probably a bit more accurate to say. You're as awareness, you don't reject pain. You're just aware of it. And there's a distinction made between pain and suffering. So pain is just the sort of raw sensation that you're having in the moment, and then suffering is everything you add on to it with your mind. So it's like, okay, you have a pain, and then you start to feel, I don't want this pain, when's it going to go? I've had it for years, and it's like, I've tried everything and it won't go. Or, you start going off like that, and then you start having all these emotions to do with, despair about your pain and all that kind of stuff, and like the ball just keeps snowballs. And that's the distinction between suffering and pain. So you can't get rid of pain by identifying more with your awareness, but what you can get rid of is the suffering part of it. You just let all that go. So you just let the pain be the pain, and then what you're letting go of is your emotional reaction to it and your thinking about it. Or you're not letting that cascade into, and that's where all the kind of like horror comes into it,
What happens when somebody asks you, so what were you thinking? When you go into one of those little moments.
Yeah.
And you've got absolutely no idea what you were thinking. There's no recollection of it.
Yeah, well, it's what? Where are you? Where have you gone?
Is that a sort of meditation in itself?
Well, okay, there is something called the flow states, which is where you're really engaged in an activity and time seems to disappear and you lose yourself. You're not really thinking. You do, like maybe when you're gardening or something like that, you're just doing the activity. You're sort of, but you're still aware of kind of what you're aware of what you're doing, but you're not thinking about it or having you just got a sort of sense of well-being about it, and time just kind of flies along. That's slightly different to being just blacked out and lost. I was talking the other day to Dizzy about when I first got drunk when I was a teenager. First couple of times I blacked out. I was doing stuff, like I was like going right into the vegetables in this corner shop in London, in Wimbledon. I was just like right in this. The shopkeeper said, "Can you get your friend out of our vegetables?" And I've no memory of that at all. It's like I wasn't even aware. And sometimes in those people are so out of being aware that they don't even hear. Someone might knock at the door or something and they don't even notice because they're so absorbed in thinking or something like that.
I think the trick would be to merge between the two according to the situation. So if you're engaged with somebody, perhaps you wouldn't be so disattached.
Well, but the more you do this, you can be really detached and attached at the same moment.
Yeah, you can flow between the two.
Yeah.
But if you had a particularly
well, no, you're not flowing between the two. They're both simultaneously happening for you.
Oh, okay.
So you're always both. Yeah, all of us here are always both of these sides all the time. We're all like this, but we just don't recognise it. Okay, we're all aware because if I go like this, we'll all see it. Yeah, we're all hearing this. Yeah, you can't not be these things, but this is just actually consciously recognising it in the moment. Yeah. Right. I mean, there's a whole day's worth of stuff okay, with this one thing, but I'm going to leave it there with that, and we'll do some other things. Okay?
Is that Zen practice? Because you mentioned we were covering a few different approaches. That's
okay,
Zen.
so this would be more what's called Rinzai Zen, which is Rinzai Zen is to do where they call it sudden awakening. So you suddenly realise they do all these kind of tricks where they try and suddenly make you wake up into awareness. They use koans, which are these kind of crazy poems, sayings which don't make any sense. Like, what's the sound of one hand clapping? Those kind of things. And then there's one called Soto Zen, which is called the gradual approach, which is lots and lots of sitting meditation for years and years and years, for hours and hours a day. So this would be more the kind of Rinzai Zen thing. This is about waking up now. And the reason why this is important for meditation practice is if you don't have this recognition, you will just sit as your thought. You sit in meditation and be lost in your thoughts the whole time. And or if you sit for hours and hours and hours, your thoughts might quieten down, and then you're just left with bodily sensations, and you're just totally identified with your body. And if you do meditation for hours and hours and hours and years and years and years, eventually your mind and body can get so quiet that all that's left is your awareness and just blackness, just aware of black, which is difficult to describe unless you've had the experience. But there's just nothing other than this awakeness.
So is that sort of awareness and the idea of the spokes, or the detaching the different parts, is that foundation in all of these different types of meditation? Like, it seems quite similar to some of the stuff in mindfulness.
Yeah, well, so with a lot of the mindfulness practice, you'd be aware of. They'd say be aware of physical sensations, be aware of your thoughts, watch them arise, don't do anything to them, let them come, let them go. But they never ask that final question of who is aware. And it's a really interesting question. And it's the kind of question that keeps you occupied for the whole of your life, because you keep unearthing layers and layers.
Is the who's listening not what makes you you?
So when we say, I was there, when I was 6, I was there looking at that tennis ball on the tennis court. And then you say, now I'm 40 and I'm in a room and I'm sitting looking at Amy. So I feel the same. There's part of me that feels the same now. Can you feel that when you do go through different memories in your life? There's part of you, it's like you feel like I'm there. Yeah.
I found it quite hard.
If you didn't have that sensation, you wouldn't have the memory. In order to have an experience in the first place, you have to be aware and awake and conscious. And when we say I was there, more, if you really look at it, what you're actually talking about more is that part of yourself, not what you were thinking or what you were feeling, because they're not the same now as they were then. And that's the clue that tells you that you're not actually those things. Those things come and go inside of you. I feel like there's more you wanted to ask about it.
I know. I was just thinking of the memories that I had, like when you said think about something you were doing earlier. The first thing that came to my mind was like giving my husband a cuddle, like touching my husband before I left, and just like. And then the thought of 5 years ago, that was of watching my girls when they were really little playing in the garden, and I remember like how warm it was and like wanting to take a photo and like capture that moment because they're gorgeous like front.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then the thought of when I was really little, that took a really long time to come, and it was kind of like nothing, I couldn't see anything in focus. And then I remember like my favourite thing to do when I was little was to lie on my mum and to just listen to her heart and feel her body moving as she was breathing. for me, those all three memories, it's just about like how much I love my mum, how much I love my children, and then how much I love my husband, and like that was the three things that joined them. But then you saying about who thinks about those things, and I suppose it's just something to kind of.
It is mind-boggling. You can't think about it. It's an experience. It's an actual experience that you can have, and it's very difficult. It's so simple. It's so difficult to describe.
Yeah.
But if you were the thought, I want to take this photo of my girls playing. If you were that thought's gone, but you're still here. So if you were your thoughts, they keep coming and going. So you're not any of your thoughts, because if they've gone, then you wouldn't be here anymore. But there's part of you that feels I'm still here. And even if you say, well, okay, well, the thing that ties all those stories together is my feeling of love. What happens in a moment when you hate somebody? That love's gone. So where have you gone? But you're still there, hating. Whether you're loving or hating, you're still there. And that's the part I'm just trying to point out here. And it's not. It can take quite a lot of repetition of the stuff to actually get it.
Yeah.
Which is why I've done a lot of repetition now. And this is way more talking than I'll be doing for the rest. We do other stuff which doesn't require so much talking. But the reason why I wanted to talk so much about this one is that for me this is really key to all of them. It's the thread that ties them all together. And for me, you can probably tell, this is the hole. I've dug the deep hole. I've dug the deep hole in this one. Okay, which is why I've got so much to say about it.
It's interesting.
Yeah?
It's interesting.
And it's interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, I could talk about it all day, even though there's nothing to talk about it, because this part of you doesn't do talking. But fun enough, there's so much to say about it, and it's like it only takes a moment to recognise this, but it takes a lifetime of practice to establish this and become, get really good with it. Because you'll notice you keep getting lost and then waking up. Yeah. And then
I get it now. It's like for years I thought, I don't want to be in the nothingness. It's boring. Why would I want to go there? I love being creative and thinking and being myself, but actually all of a sudden I get it.
Yeah.
And it's like taking a lifetime just to get it.
Yeah.
So
you're not. It's not nothingness. It's very alive.
I do understand.
Alive
what you're
and
saying
awake. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this, but awake.
Rather than stop being the baby again, isn't it? Well, you don't question anything. The baby's there and doesn't know what shapes are. That's you. That you don't. You're not questioning it. You're accepting and you're aware of it.
A baby can't accept or reject anything. Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't want to spend your life like that, because you'd be dead without help. And if we were all like babies, we'd be extinct.
But the getting lost in concepts that we learn.
They can't even form concepts,
That's
babies.
What I mean. So
then we learn to make concepts. We build an identity, a personality as we grow, and then that becomes an intolerable burden at some point. And I don't know about other people. I've got really dear friends that have killed themselves because it was an intolerable burden being a person. That got to the point where it was so painful, and this is why it's important to be able to let go beyond your. It's almost like picking up that babiness, but now you're a personality plus the babiness. So the baby's just the baby, and then you kind of forget the baby, you become a person, and then later on you become the baby and the person. It's almost a bit like that mountain and being a mountain and not being a mountain and a mountain again.
It's finding that, accepting this.
Yeah, well, it's never gone anywhere. Yeah. It's always been part of you, but you just forget it when you get obsessed with this project of making a personality, which is a really important thing to do, because if you've got no well-developed personality, you'll just be taken advantage of your whole life, or you're a complete arsehole. You know, and it's part of the project of life is to become a better person, isn't it? And, this can really help with that. Yes, that's a really good way of describing it. It's bringing back, it's reintegrating that kind of baby mind and the personality mind. Yeah. And it's called non-duality in just, meditation literature.